All right. Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Unlicensed. If you guys do not know what this podcast is about, if this is your first time tuning in, my name is Jill. I am the host of Unlicensed, and this is the podcast where real women write in anonymously about literally anything they want, from dating and relationships to self-confidence to manifestation to career to my job. My dog is jumping on the bed. I need a dog trainer to come in and give me some advice on how to make sure that dog is not doing it. We literally cover it all, and I am joined by different female guests throughout the week, relationship coaches, therapists, friends, family, and social media influencers, because as you guys know, I don't know what I'm doing with my life half the time. I have no idea what I'm doing. So I have these different guests to help offer advice to myself as well on the day-to-day basis. As I mentioned, we do have these different female guests joining us, and today we are joined by Fanta-Marie. She is a cybersecurity educator, professional, and digital content creator who focuses on her life in tech. She is educating you guys on all things cybersecurity on her TikTok, which has almost 50,000 followers, YouTube, and other social media channels too. My girl has her MBA in cybersecurity. So we're going to talk a little bit cybersecurity today, but that's not actually what we're talking about. Yeah. But welcome. I'm so excited to have you here today.
I'm so happy to be here.
We were like already chatting before.
I love your energy.
No, you too.
I hope we're friends after this.
No, when you message me and you're like, oh my God, I love your energy. I'm like, no, I love your energy. So we will be hanging out. Like, actually, I'm not kidding. I love when I vibe with guests. Okay. I'm like, I have a new friend.
I'm going to hold you to that.
No, we're hanging out.
You're going to hurt my feelings if you don't want to hang out with me.
We're going to exchange numbers. It's going to be the best of it. Okay. But as you know, we like to hop into like your background a little bit before we get into the advice for today. So I'm really excited to hear more into how you ended up in cybersecurity. Yeah. And honestly, then a little bit more about your digital content creating journey for that. I saw a video that you mentioned that you started filming like lifestyle created content when you were moving from DMV to Atlanta area. You had a viral video that went crazy with cybersecurity. Now you only focus on that, but how was that transition from lifestyle content into what you're doing now?
Yeah. So, well, I got started in the industry actually because I wanted to go to law school. You know, I wanted to study IP, and I got waitlisted to schools I applied to. So I was like, well, student loans are due. I
bet it's not working.
I just spent a year studying for the LSAT and didn't get anywhere. So I don't have a job, you know what I'm saying? Like, I got to do something. And at the time, like during the pandemic, you know, everybody's learning a lot. TikTok kind of just like changed everybody's perspective. And I was like, cybersecurity this, cybersecurity that, buzzword. I was watching Simone Bies and I was like, okay, I know cybersecurity is like a crazy field. Who is this Black woman who's making all this money in cyber? I was like, oh, let me figure that out. However, I was so burnt out from standardized tests. I was like, I'm not taking the GRE. I'm not gonna, but I need to go back to school for something. So my school offered traditionally it's 2 years, but they also had a fast track. So I did the 1-year program. I applied and I didn't have to take another test to get in.
Wait, that's amazing.
I know. I was like, all right, cool. So
sign up immediately. Yes.
So we got right into it. And I've loved it ever since. Like it just felt really natural to me. Compared to what I was studying, I was like, this is a lot easier than what I was doing. You know what I'm saying?
Beforehand.
So just kind of, got started with that in fall of 2022. So it's been 2 years just about. And we love it here. But like I've always loved creating content. Like when I was in middle school, I always, you and your girlfriend making videos.
Little videos, stuff. Doing the dances.
I've always loved creating content. Like, so I was like, all right, when I move, I'm going to, document everything. I'm going to do apartment stuff, decorating.
Yes.
And that's what I started off doing. I started talking about
the lifestyle,
like my transition to Atlanta and like also trying to heal stuff I was doing. And then, the people are like, what do you do? What do you do? And then that's how we started making cyber content.
We need more of this. We need more of this.
Yeah, pretty much.
I love it. How do you manage doing social media? Because you're very consistent. Like looking at your pages, like you're posting like every day, it seems.
I love that you think that I post every day because I post like once a week.
Okay, that's
now I do. I post once a week because there's a lot going on.
I was gonna say, so how do you manage that? Because I know a lot of the time you're seeing this advice, especially on TikTok, where creators are saying you need to post every single day and being so consistent, which can burn people out so easily, especially if you are working a 9-to-5 job outside of that. So how do you manage both of those things at the same time? Because obviously your job is very extensive. It's a big part of your life, a big part. You had to go to school for it. I know, like cybersecurity specifically, like the hours are long. So how do you manage the long hours of your 9-to-5 and then also digital content creation on the side too?
Yeah, honestly, I realized like the need for my content is greater than me. Like I make my my videos because I know I'm helping people. I didn't have a unique experience. Like I got into an industry I had no idea about and like had to figure it out on my own. So like, and I'm a recovering people pleaser. So I make videos to serve my audience pretty much when I can fit it in. Sometimes work is, not so busy and sometimes you're doing 14-hour days. But in the end, like I just try to stay consistent by posting resources and stuff. And consistency is different for everybody. I think at the beginning, like, especially with TikTok, you tend to see a lot of creators repeatedly on your timeline before you follow them. So I feel like that's where it's like, oh yeah, post 3 times a day. I think if you're new, you can do that. But once you have a following, like, focus on quality rather than like spamming people because like it's tiring. And it's just like I'm just posting for numbers.
Bunch of videos that actually aren't pertaining to anyone or anyone can't really relate to in that way.
Like I'm just gonna post like what I think would help people. I'm not worried about hitting 3 videos a day anymore. Like really, I'm like at 1 video a week now and my numbers are consistent. So that's what consistency looks like for me. So,
yes. You gotta find what works for you. I love that you said that. I was talking about that with another guest of like, even in consistency in any part of your life, if that's working out, whatever, like find what works for you because what works for your friend in terms of being consistent is gonna look completely differently for you if that's more or less, whatever ways you can manage that for yourself too. I love obviously the education standpoint that you just mentioned. You really want to serve your audience and teach them. Have you always been someone who's been passionate about serving others in that way in terms of education? Is this something that's been something newer to you as you started your digital content creation journey too? Because I think it's so important for people to use resources. You're like, I have my master's and you guys are getting this information for free, which is amazing. It's amazing. So many people don't do that. So many people are like, and then go subscribe to my website and book a class for this amount of money. I'm like, bitch, okay, and let me find a free video on YouTube then at that point. I can't be doing it. So have you always been someone who's had a passion for educating and helping others in that landscape of it being free as well? Like, that's amazing.
Yeah. So that's funny you mentioned that because growing up, like my friends used to call me an encyclopedia. Like I'm the person who like, if I have a question in my brain, like that's not enough for me. Like I have to figure out what the answer is. That's every area of my life. So a lot of the times my friends will ask me stuff. They're like, I'm asking you because you know. And I'm like, just Google it. But I can tell you.
You're like I actually do know stuff.
I'm like, that's pretty much like how my content goes is like, I figured this out on my own. And so I'm going to save you the time. I'll tell you, or at least I'll give you a footing on how to figure out the information, like, because you need more. I can get you started, but I can't give you everything. And it's interesting because I'm at a point now where like I do want to start selling as a creator, but I'm realizing like I'm studying the market and what other people are doing, and it's kind of like a lot of people overcharging for things that so like if I put something out, like it needs to be quality, it needs to be worth the spend, and that's hard to do. It's really hard to do, because I don't want to just like I very much could put out a course and say give me $3,000 and people would do it.
100%.
What are you getting for that? Nothing. So it's kind of like I'm taking my time. But I'm at a point where like I do want to build a community. It just, the numbers have to be right and the value has to be there. That's tricky.
You have a pure heart though. That's so good. Because so many people would be like, I'm charging $3,000 for this and this quality is not it, but I'm about to be making money.
I'm too empathetic.
You're like, I would feel really bad.
No, I would feel awful. Like I have this conversation with my friends all the time because they're like, you need to start doing this, that. And I'm like, listen, I know, but if I take my time and even like put out like a full blown course on like training and everything, and if I charge $5 for it and I see a 1-star review, like that's gonna mess me up so bad. Like
I will never recover from that shit.
Never. So that's why I'm like being very diligent with what I'm working on now. Yeah. So yeah, because I'm just like, you know, $5. Like, come on, you know.
You'll find it. You'll find it. And you're right, though. Like, you are putting so much time and effort, like realizing your worth, and that is so important. But I love that you understand at the end of the day that you're not trying to take advantage, obviously, of any of your audience, and you're actually trying to help people. And that's really refreshing because there's a lot of content creators and people that don't give a damn. And so it's really refreshing to hear that. And that makes me so happy, too. And I know earlier you were kind of mentioning being obviously like a woman of color within this field too. How has that been for you navigating working in tech cybersecurity as a Black woman? I don't see a lot of us in these fields. So I'm so interested to hear about your perspective of that.
It's been bittersweet. Cybersecurity is, I mean, tech in general is a predominantly white industry. Yeah. Cybersecurity, at least in the spaces I've been working in, have been mostly like older white men. It's just
what it is.
They like that side of tech, you know? But it's cool because it's cool and not cool, but it's cool because they don't see you as competition, which makes your work environment a lot easier.
Interesting.
A lot less pressure.
Yeah.
But I feel that working with older women is an issue.
Really?
That's where problems, yes. Because I think women naturally compete with one another.
Society.
Yeah, that's just society. Yeah. And like that's just what we do sometimes, unfortunately. Yeah. But so I get issues in that department. Especially like my previous manager just gave me issues. Yeah. Issues all the time. Like just moving the goalpost because I think like she struggled in ways that, you know, it's kind of like, I got it out the mud, so you need to get it out the mud too. But like, no,
we don't have to be struggling like that.
It doesn't need to be. Who said that?
Yeah.
Like,
they're afraid to like move the needle in that way. It's always been done a certain way. They feel like it always has to be that way. Newer generations coming in with new perspectives is going to be different. Yeah.
And it's stressful. Like we have our one-on-ones and, you know, we're having conversations about, you know, you need to present yourself this way. You know, people are paying attention to this and that. And I get it. I feel like as women, we have to be more polished in general. So there's no attacks on her there. Yeah. But my managers, like, who are white males, get your work done.
Damn. They're like,
get out
chilling.
of my face. Stay out of my face. Like
don't talk to me.
Get it done. Whatever you do is what you do. I don't care what's going on. You can't show up today. I don't care. Like, as long as the stuff is there when it's there. Yeah. You know?
Does it ever infuriate you though that they don't see you as competition, or do you genuinely enjoy that they don't see you in that light, so you don't have anxiety going into your workplace in that way?
So that's where the bittersweet part is, because right now I am realizing I'm not in the rush I was to climb the corporate ladder. Okay. So I'm kind of like, just give me stuff to do. Yeah. I'm going to get it done. And I'm going to do it a lot quicker than everybody else will, which is fine. But at the same time, I'm noticing like who gets promotions, and it's more of a boys club. It's more of a, you know, we spend the most time together, happy hours and this and that. And our family knows each other well. So when the role opens up, it's not who deserves the role. It's who do I like the most. So yeah, that's really it. I mean, but they love us. They really do. Like, I can't lie. But they don't see us in that way. You know, you're not going to have that bond with them. Yeah. It's a boys club. Yeah. Corporate.
And they're going to have the competition against each other in that sense, which maybe y'all will burn each other down at that point. But you already started getting into some really key points of our episode today. So hold those thoughts. As you guys know, guys, I'm so excited for today's episode. We are talking about not cybersecurity, even though I might need to have you back on to do it because I'm so interested in that as well. Okay, yeah. So we'll do season 5. She'll be back. But today we are talking about sexism in the workplace. I figured you would be the most perfect guest, obviously, because of your work environment and being in a male-dominated field. So I'm so excited. This person wrote in today and they said, I've been at my current job for over a year now, and I'm noticing how my male bosses treat my male coworkers way better. They get bigger projects and assignments, even though I'm the one who's more professional and consistent. Yes. For example, one of my male colleagues shows up late and hungover almost every day and still gets praised, while I still feel like my hard work goes unnoticed. I just found out that although we were hired at the same time and we're in the same position, he's making about 8K more than me, even though I outperform him. It feels really unfair. To top it off, whenever we have team hangouts, the guys always get into their own jokes and banter that I can't really relate to, and I end up feeling left out. So many key parts of this. I'm excited to dive into it. I'm going to ask you some questions about your own experiences within this, but obviously advice of how this person can end up navigating and advocating for themselves in this really shitty situation. My first question for you, though, is I'm excited to hear a little more about examples of sexism that you've maybe faced specifically within the space that you're in. I read this crazy statistic the other day that like 20 to 24% of cybersecurity workforce is made up by women. So I work in marketing. I've always worked in very, honestly, female-dominated fields. So I'm so excited to get your input into this because I wouldn't even know how to go about this because I've never been in a situation like this before. I worked in admissions for 2 years. There was one man in the office. So really great environment. Loved it. And now I work in a female-dominated field and like corporate marketing. All women, really. Like all the leaders are women for the most part. Our CEO is a man, but everybody else kind of under that is a woman. Yeah. So just kind of starting off, any examples you can offer of maybe something sexist that's happened to you while working in this field or studying in this field or anything related to what you've been doing for the past few years?
Yeah, I would say some of it wouldn't be as overt. My first manager, love him. He was amazing. He was more, I would say he was more woke. Okay. Truthfully. Okay. Just from like his family and his kids and stuff like that. Yeah. So he was very cautious about how he treated me. But I noticed like before they ended up like letting me go, they did transition someone else into like my area. And like he was getting the more like technical implementations and changes. And he was being included more in like meetings that like I wasn't given the opportunity. Yeah. Yes. I would find out afterwards. Or I'd like constantly have to ask, like, can you include me in this meeting? Or like, what did you guys talk about? And that, like, you know, so I felt like it was just easier for them to rely on the other guy. And I didn't want to blame it on me being a woman, but honestly, I just kind of felt like, I think it's just easier for men to rely on other men that way. Yeah. Like,
it's what they're used to.
And in a technical field too, especially when you don't get the chance to prove yourself, so they don't really like give you the chance to prove yourself.
Yeah, the opportunity's not there, and y'all don't give a fuck to do it.
Not there.
Yeah.
So wow. I haven't necessarily faced anything crazy, but I've also been in like another company where my team lead is a woman. There's only two of us on the team. Yeah, and we would get in meetings and like if there was a P1, which is like emergencies, a system is down, app or site is down. Yeah. And like the more technical guys who are used to only talking to men come on and like, you know, treat her like she doesn't know what she's talking about or want to talk over her and like cut her off and like push her buttons in a way. And it's like
that they wouldn't do to a man.
Yeah, exactly. So you see that and you're like, okay. And then, but no, I mean, in the workplace, I haven't necessarily faced that too much. Yeah. But I studied engineering and I did experience that, like the 2 years where we were in person. Yeah. Went to a PWI and then also was like really the only Black person in my classes most of the time. So like I was getting called out on a lot. Because I stuck out. Like, you know, you're in a room full of 200 people. You're the only person that looks like you. Like, who knows this? Can you answer? Okay, really? Yeah. So it's like you know, I mean, that's just what we deal with in life in general. We always got to be 10 steps ahead of everybody else. So you get used to it. But yeah, that's
No, thank you for sharing. I was going to ask your experiences, obviously, like as a woman, but also a woman of color. Yeah. I love that you brought up the education standpoint. Do you feel like sexism in an educational field, so like a classroom or studying a master's program, is more harmful than a workplace? Because in these moments when you're trying to figure out what you want to do with your life, when you're obviously learning and you're in these school settings, for example, I feel like there's such a position, even more so of power, when it's like a professor or even weirdly like your peers as you're navigating like who you are as a person and learning at the same time too. Do you feel like sexism in an educational background is more harmful than a workplace, or do you feel like they're equally as harmful to one another?
They're definitely equally harmful, I would say. I think honestly, these issues start a lot earlier than we realize. I think, I've read stats on this stuff, like young girls around the age of 8, like moving into, middle school and stuff, like we're pushed more into creative areas.
Oh yeah. English and history and the men are the science and the math. Oh yeah.
So we kind of fall out of love with, deeper diving into things like the respective to like more like STEM, I would say. So I think it starts there. That's where it really starts. And then like you get into higher education and you kind of see those patterns, like my general elective classes were taught by women, like marketing, and like I took a couple marketing classes. My history classes, women. My calculus class, I had one professor that was a woman. All my other engineering courses, men.
Wow.
Like men, literally all.
Every single one.
So, it stems there. And then they are leaders in their industry. So, of course, the workplace, is them times 10 more. So, yeah, you're going to see that stuff, but it starts very early. So it's a lot earlier.
I didn't even think about I remember that in middle school. It's like the girls, art classes and English and writing. The men, math is going to be it. And I remember these higher level classes. It seems like all the boys were in the higher level classes. And then most of the women, there was usually like two girls in the math classes, the higher math classes. You know how they be like separating you as a kid, which can be very harmful in itself. I didn't even think about that standpoint too. And you kind of mentioned, the harmful effects that may have been coming from like a professor, these people of power. Did you have any situations with your peers during school too, where you noticed any sort of sexism within that, or like sexist comments or something interrupting you when you're trying to speak, anything like that?
No, I always made it a point to kind of be a leader whenever I was in group projects. Because I wanted to avoid that. I always made sure to coordinate everything, make sure everybody got their work done, and made sure that like I was able to delineate like everyone's work to avoid those things. But in classrooms and labs, I would definitely overhear a lot of inappropriate comments, like, guys just saying things and like, so yeah, like I didn't necessarily experience that from my peers directly, but girl, I heard some crazy stuff. I'm like, you sit in, you're sitting in a computer lab, and it's like, and I hate to say it too, I feel like some highly technical people suffer with social skills. They don't understand what's
the awareness isn't really there.
The awareness is gone, girl. Like there's no way you just said that in a room full of people. And even when you look at them, they look back at you like,
and what about
this is normal? Like what?
Not even like trying to be necessarily like ill intent there. They really just don't understand. How did you deal with some of those comments? Because you kind of mentioned earlier, which I think is so cool, in your workspace when you weren't included in these meetings, and then you noticed this new hire was automatically getting included in these meetings, you would kind of advocate for yourself in those moments, like, hey,
give me more work,
give me something more to do, which is really cool, and I think really great advice, because a lot of people would just fall more into that and be like, okay, well, obviously they don't feel like I'm capable of these things, so I'm not going to lean in more into it. But you're like, no, I know I'm capable of these things. So how did you advocate for yourself in the classroom when you heard those comments? Were you just like, I'm going to ignore that, act like I did not hear anything? Or would you say something? Because it's hard to say something in those moments too.
Yeah. I would hear crazy stuff all the time, and I just, all right, well,
keep it moving.
Stay away from that person. I hope I don't get assigned to a group project with them. I just don't want to be around you because now you're weird.
I heard what I heard, and I'm not forgetting it at that point too. No, I feel like in some situations you have to know when to pick and choose your battles within that. I was going to ask you how you navigate that, because there's some situations where I feel like, especially in this one, this person is writing in, I know they know that it's important for them to advocate for themselves, because I'm seeing a lot of obviously inequality at this point, which is almost blatant too. But how can you navigate, okay, I need to advocate for myself in this situation versus like, this is a small thing, which could grow bigger, of course, or feels relatively small to me in this moment, and I want to save my energy. It's not really worth my time or energy to really go about this. When can you tell the difference of when you need to advocate for yourself / taking a step back and not? Or are you someone that's like, if it's bothering you, say something?
Yeah, I tend to do that with my social life. Like if something bothers me, I'll talk to my friends or family about it. But in the workplace, I really only care about my relationship with my manager and maybe my colleagues, depends. Like I will always make sure my end of the work is done so I don't hold anybody back. But when it comes to like work and stuff, you just got to make sure your relationship with your manager is good. And if it's not, then you have to look elsewhere. Like in terms of advocating for yourself, like you have to be able to communicate like what it is specifically you want. And a good manager is going to make sure that you're happy.
So true. So true.
But other than that, like if you have a colleague that's a little wonky, you're like, no, they're not right in the head, or like, I don't really want to go to this happy hour with them. Don't.
Then like, you don't. It's not worth your time then.
No, keep it cute. Keep it, you know. And that doesn't mean ignore anybody, but just you got to be really firm with your boundaries with people.
100%.
But that's really it. Like you just have to make sure that your quality is your like quality of work doesn't decline, and you need to work, I would probably say, go above and beyond to make sure that you are proving that you're a good worker to your manager, because at the end of the day they're the ones, you know, issuing performance reviews and stuff like that. So even if you have like an issue with somebody else, like document everything. Go straight to your manager and say like, hey, this happened. I've done that many times. I'm like, I don't really like this. I will straight up say, I don't like this person.
Because it's supposed to be a place of trust in that. Like you really should be able to, if it's a good manager, tell them something and it's not getting back to that person in that way. Definitely.
So, I mean, you still have to be careful because you never know, right? You never know anybody's relationship. You never know what's getting told, but you know, sometimes like you can still be human and say like, I don't really like this person. I don't like how they treat me, but you know, my work still gets done at the end of the day and I have that documented. And so if there's any issues, you know, you have your that paper. But otherwise, like advocating for yourself, you can still do that. Be vocal, be open, but you know, set boundaries with other people.
No, fantastic advice. Sometimes that person that you don't like, especially if you're noticing sexist comments and things being made, you don't need to spend more time with them. I love that you brought up the point of the relationship with your manager. Thankfully, I have a really great manager. She's also a woman, so I feel like that helps our situation as well. But if you are feeling like the person that you just mentioned, you're supposed to trust in these moments you're going to, is practicing that sexist mindset, and you feel like some of their own biases are coming onto you, if that's a man or a woman, whatever that looks like too, how can you go about that in the workplace if the person that you're supposed to trust and they're supposed to be advocating for you is practicing sexism, is doing those things still? Because that's where the power dynamics get really tricky and messy too. How do you go about something like that?
That's tough because, you know, it goes back to, we were talking about this earlier, like if you hear a weird comment, like how do you fix that? How do you change someone's core beliefs? You can't. You need to document your conversations. Make sure you're covered, because in the event, you know, someone crosses a line, you know, you got to be able to go to HR or talk to an employment attorney or something if you need to. But in the end, it's like, I'm really good at like reading people. So I feel like I can, in situations where like I can tell that, you know, like my previous manager might not trust me or something, like I would try to get the work done early and like set up a meeting with them and like talk about exactly what it is that I was trying to accomplish, so that I can be like, hey, I'm actually doing this. But in the end, it doesn't change anything. So that's where you need to kind of like have a conversation with yourself. Like, is this the environment that I want to be in? And if it's not, then like you have to slowly strategize. And I know like right now it's an employer's market. It's hard to just pick up income. Right. Oh my gosh.
No one's getting hired.
I see TikToks and they're like, oh, my manager didn't approve my vacation, so I quit.
And now what?
What?
Because it took me a year to find a job.
You have the ability to just, okay.
And not work?
All right, cool.
I want that life.
But really, like, you just have to keep, like, just be persistent. Like, you got to be annoying. Like, that's what I did. I was like, oh, can I do this? Can I do that?
Yeah.
I know we have this meeting. Like, I'm going to start calling this person. I'm going to start, like, prove your worth. And then if they see it, they see it. If they don't, they don't. You know, you can't, like, my mentor in high school, he's my favorite ever. Yeah. He used to tell me, like, these old dudes like to speak in a lot of like
they're little like riddles and shit. Please get to the point.
Yeah. He's like, if you go to China right now, you don't speak Mandarin, and you're trying to say hi to somebody, they don't speak a lick of English. You're trying to ask them for directions. What are you gonna try to do? And so like the whole class, we're like sitting there, like you try to speak slower, try to use like your hands and stuff. He's like, but they don't get it. You saying the same sentence slower doesn't make them understand. Yeah. They don't know what you're saying. Yeah. So why are you speaking slower?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm using that.
So I think about that all the time. Like, you cannot make somebody understand something like if they haven't put in the effort or tried. Like, you know, like
it is
you
hard
don't speak the same language. You don't speak the same language.
You said it. It's true. It's true. How would you? I'm so interested in that, and I love talking about like obviously the historical context to a lot of this, because obviously for so long women were not allowed in the workforce. They're expected to be home taking care of their children. There's so many people, men and women. There's a lot of women that take on that traditional housewife role, which I would want my partner to be someone that if I'm like I want to go back to the workforce, they are. In agreement with that. I would never marry someone that's like, you have to be in the house all the time. It's like, that's my decision if I'm in the house. That's
no,
my
kidding. No, but I get it. No, yeah.
So what would you say, or how would you feel someone with those like very traditional views would think of you as this woman, this Black woman in tech? What opinion do you think they would have of you and everything that you're doing with your 9-to-5 job and also digital content creation too?
So I will say, listen, I'm West African, okay? So I'm very traditional with like a modern lens. Like, I am very appreciative of education, and I think that is something a lot of women in the world do not get to experience because, you know, the world is ran by men. Yeah. So I am thankful to be where I'm at, and I think like I'm in this industry truly because there's a life that I want for myself. There are things that I want to experience. There's a lot of beautiful things in the world that I want to go see. Like, traveling is my passion. So I was like, how do I find a job that gives me the flexibility to do what I want to do without a lot of stress? And which is crazy because I wanted to go to law school.
Never taking a vacation.
But working 80 hours a week, girl, like but that's really what it came down to. And it's like I didn't want to have to rely on a man to do that. So because otherwise it's just like, why am I pausing my life in the event that I'll hypothetically meet a man that'll pay all my bills? Like, even though like that is the dream job.
You heard it here first.
I want to be, but I don't dream of labor.
I hate working. Are you kidding me?
Like, who wants to
I don't want to work. Please. Most people don't.
Like, what's that lady's name? Susan B. Anthony or whatever. You know who I'm talking about. Like, sometimes I be sitting here and I'm like, why would she say that? Why?
I actually wanted to be at home, Susan.
Like, why would we do that? But no, it's a privilege. It's a luxury. Like, I think women, we're highly intelligent.
Yes.
I don't want to say we're better than, you know, but we're highly intelligent. So I think like our perspective is needed in the, you know, the workforce, no matter what industry you work in.
Yeah. Agreed.
Because the world is ran by men. And sometimes like you don't want to only have the perspective of a male, like, you know, you kind of, I think that's really where diversity comes into. It's not just about skin color. It's about like people's perspectives. And as women, we live totally different lives.
Yes.
So yes, we need to take up as much of the workforce as possible.
Yeah. No, I agree. I love that you said diversity is not just skin color. It comes from the perspectives that different people can bring. And women obviously are amazing and intelligent and should be in all of these spaces, because we are going to bring fresh ideas that a man couldn't even think of, in those spaces. For you coming into this male dominated field, what stereotypes do you feel like people have assumed about you as a woman? Has there been things done or things said that you're like, I know you felt this way about me only because I'm a woman? Does anything come to mind, or just general things that you feel like people might automatically assume for you in this male dominated field because you are a woman?
I mean, I would just say, like, they would just assume that you don't know as much as them. They want to mansplain. They want to, you know, break things down for you. Like, you know, they want to be helpful and it's cool. Like, I'll let you stroke your ego. Go ahead and explain something to me that I already know. Like, I have no qualms about that.
Yeah.
Like, really. But yeah, no, it's a lot of mansplaining.
I cannot deal with the mansplaining. Oh my God. And I feel like with mansplaining too, it's so frustrating because it's so insidious. Like, it's not in your face, it's not blatant, but it's like, I know what's going on in these situations right now, or interrupting or not being invited. These things are things that you can't necessarily go to HR and be like, he mansplained. They would be like, okay, and what do you want me to do about that? So I was going to ask you too, do you feel like the type of sexism that's kind of like under the belt, you can't really see it, it's not in your face, is more harmful than the things that are in your face? Because these things can be happening and going on throughout the entirety of a year, but it's not necessarily anything that you can write down and bring back to your manager or HR. It's just things that you notice make you feel really uncomfortable in whatever way too. Yeah. So let's talk about like the blatant versus like the under the belt, kind of like under the cover sexism that you might face too, the overt versus covert.
I think that is definitely more harmful because, one, you don't see it. You don't know what's happening. Yep. It's really all hypothetical and unknown. Yeah. So you don't know where that's going. I think if someone is over, it's just they have felt comfortable enough to say those things and no one's really checked them. No one's corrected them. They just kind of have the personality where they feel like they can say whatever.
Yeah.
So at least, you know, they're being honest, they're being their true selves. But yeah, I always think it's worrisome because you don't know how people view you, how people, the conversations that they can have about you outside of the room. Yeah. So yeah, if I know a certain coworker is very sexist, is saying some real crazy things, like, I'll know what I can avoid with them. Ooh. I'll know like how to handle them. Yeah. I'll know how to set boundaries with them, what I can tell them, what I can't tell them. But if I have a coworker or say like a team lead who isn't like that, you know, you can tell that they don't trust you with their behavior, but you know, you don't know what the lines are. Yeah. So that is more dangerous for sure. Like, show me your true colors, please.
I'd rather know you're an asshole doing these things than not, and be trusting you, and then things are being said like behind my back and in rooms that I'm not in. 100%. Do you feel like in a male dominated field, specifically with maybe not being able to trust a lot of people because of the things that you've experienced, have you felt the sense of loneliness within this, or have you been able to make meaningful connections with your male counterparts as well? Or has it felt lonely during your school? You went to West Virginia University, correct? So I'm assuming like even like being in the South in that sense too, how have those feelings of loneliness developed over time since you've been in a male dominated field, if you've experienced those? Yeah.
So it's like the conversation we were having off camera about my appreciation for solitude. Yeah. Now it's not so much of a problem because like if I go into the office, I know people avoid eye contact with you. They don't want to say hi to you. Like when I was first in that environment, it was like, I was like, I'm happy to be here. This is my big girl job at a big company. Like, I'm excited. And then you're like walking around and nobody wants to look at you. No, you know, people aren't really talking to you unless it's other Black people. And it's kind of like, Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is what it is. Yeah. This is what it is then.
But now, like, well, later on, like, it got to a point where, like, all right, cool. I'm happy going into the office. I know nobody's going to talk to me. I don't have to look nice today because I don't feel like it. I love it. I love it. Like, it's, you know, you're in your own bubble. You know, nobody's going to disturb you.
Yep.
You're just, you know, getting your work done. You're in and out. Cool.
Yeah.
You hang out with your friends, your colleagues at lunch. You're good.
Do your thing.
But after that, when you're walking around, I'm like, okay, I see a group of guys coming. Not a damn person is looking at me. Amazing. Amazing.
And I'm okay with that, actually.
I'm okay with that now. But at first it was pretty like, you know, isolating for sure, because you're like, you know, you greet people, you're like, I'm new here, you're excited to be here. They don't give a damn.
Yeah,
they got bills to pay. They're not worried about the new college hire, honestly. They're like, you're too eager, give it 10 years.
Relax. Yeah, give it a year and you're like, we'll see if you're smiling as much at the end of it. No, you said the perfect word earlier for that too. I think you mentioned like the boys club, and I think everyone's experienced that in some part of their lives, even if it's not, you know, in your workplace. It might be like school growing up or an activity that you did, or if you have a bunch of like brothers and boy cousins and just seeing their dynamics growing up too. So I do feel like the social dynamics can be one of the trickiest things to navigate when it comes to workplace, you know, sexism. How have you been able to navigate some of those social settings? So if that's like a happy hour, or everyone's doing lunch at the same time, and this person mentioned specifically like not being able to relate to some of the conversations that they're having, which can stem back to this very like boys club, and these are the things that we do, and sometimes it might be inappropriate. So are you someone that's just like, I am okay spending time alone, I don't need to put myself in a situation where I'm entering these new social dynamics with these people? Or did you at first, when you first got to your company or your old company too, try to kind of mend yourself in it, and then you're like, they're not fucking with me like that, so let me take a step back? What did that look like for you in terms of social dynamics?
I would say, well, specifically for this person, I think you're just gonna drive yourself crazy trying to relate to people. There's just some things that you can't fix, can't change, and you're gonna have to adapt to that.
Yeah.
For me, growing up, I was always involved in like activities that included a lot of males. So like my friend circle from high school was all dudes, like all dudes. And I know that's weird because I feel like people hear that and they're like, it was like 3 girls and like 6 dudes.
Yeah.
Like it was mostly guys. Like I've been around men most of my entire life.
Yeah.
And like being involved in STEM and stuff like that, like that's just the nature of things. So like it never really made me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I got to a point where it's kind of like, you know, you hear inappropriate things and you're like,
can't believe this person just
you're
said
like,
that.
really? But okay, you know, you kiki and you keep it pushing. But now it's like I don't go out of my way to be in those situations. Like I'm not really close to that friend group anymore. I don't tolerate that. Or if someone says something, I'm like, you shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
But as far as like the workplace, the boys club, like you're gonna have to pick a side. You either are gonna have to act like you're one of the boys, and maybe they'll accept you, they'll initiate you in, or you just have to find an environment that works for you. It's one or the other. That's hard to do.
Because then you're not being authentic to yourself a lot of the time.
No, exactly.
If you're trying to, in that situation too, in life in general, changing yourself in any way so that these people will accept you and like you is exhausting, because you're putting on a mask every single day. You're already exhausted at work, and then you want me to put on a mask and be saying things that don't feel like Jillian or you in that sense. That doesn't make sense to me, but I understand in terms of like survival and people wanting to move up, why people do it too.
Yeah, you just have to sit down with yourself and ask yourself, what is the outcome that I truly want, and am I willing to pay that cost? If I want the title and I want the salary and I want to stay at this company for whatever reason it is, and you feel like you have to mask yourself, you have to, you know, go in 9 hours a day or somebody else because you want those things so bad, that is your cost. You come home, you're going to be burnt out, you're going to be drained. That is your cost because you want that. If you're like, you know, that's not really for me, I shouldn't have to do these things for this title at this position, this company, whatever, okay, so your cost is spending time leaving, taking maybe a pay cut, starting over, going into a blind environment, a company that might even be worse. You don't know. Yeah, that is
grass
your
is
cost.
greener sometimes, and sometimes it's not. It's true. Sometimes that grass is brown as fuck.
Like,
no,
that's your cost. Yeah. So it really comes down to, what do you want? What's truly going to fulfill you? Yeah. Because I mean, it's gonna be really hard to find an environment where you can just come in and just, you know, work hard, grind hard, and get where you feel like you need to get to. That's not how corporate works. Yeah. And another thing too, I just realized this because I talk about this a lot with my friends. The thing with men, love men. This is not an attack towards men, but I think it applies. It's a social construct that I feel like applies to the corporate world too. Mm-hmm. Men are not nice to you if they don't like you and don't find you attractive in some capacity.
Ooh, yes. I was going to ask you how you've navigated because that's a big one, like the physical appearance-based stuff that you might notice in workplace environments. That's making comments about the way that you look that they would never say to a counterpart. Or even on the opposite spectrum, women might be expected to dress a certain way in the office that a man would never need to. A woman needs to come in. My first job in admissions, I remember we as women had to wear like collared shirts, blazers, dresses below the knees every single day. And then these admission counselors, men, could come in with a fucking polo. It drove me insane. I'm in heels right now. I can't even wear sneakers when I work at a college, literally. But this man can come in with polo and khaki shorts. How have you navigated this physical kind of appearance thing that may relate back to sexism? Because you see it all the time, the little comments too. Oh, you look amazing today. The hair. Ugh. How have you navigated that? It's scary.
I don't like comments about my appearance. Yeah. I've learned to kind of just use it to, like, I don't want to alter myself for anybody. So number one, that's where it is. Like, if I want to look good today, I'm going to look good today. That's for me. That's not for you.
Period.
So I feel like that's kind of just like where I'm at with my appearance in the workplace. On top of that, I feel as though like being in a technical field, that has held me back too, because people, I mean, from conversations, you know, it's kind of like, oh, I didn't know that you knew about that, or why? Because my hair is pressed out, my nails are done, because I got my stuff pressed on. Don't be jealous. Yeah, like, come on, you know. So that kind of,
because you're like a pretty woman who takes care of yourself, they automatically think you're dumb.
That holds you back. That does hold you back. So it's kind of just like, you know, no, I hate comments on my appearance. Like I told you, I have a lot of social anxiety. Yeah. Like, you know, if I want to look good one day, I'm gonna look good one day. If I don't, I don't. But like, please don't comment. Like, don't tell me. Like,
it's just gross. It's weird, and it's not kind of like just a weird double standard in that play too. Because it's like, I know that you would never have said that to this man who is literally the same position as me. You would never make any, even if he looked great that day, if he got a new haircut, you would have, nice haircut, man, you look really good. Never would have been said. Never would have been said.
Wouldn't. That's just, I think our position as women in the male lens is women are a thing of beauty. We're to be possessed. So feel comfortable that's what they look at us for. Yeah. So yeah, they're gonna be like, oh, I like your hair today, or you did something different, or you know, I like what you're wearing, and it's like, who asked? But
I did not say anything about that in that moment. Insane.
I didn't ask, but I will take it. Thank you.
I mean, that's the reality of it too. Unfortunately, that is the world that we live in. That is what a lot of people put women's worth in, and especially in the corporate world. You gave the perfect example of how people wouldn't even take you seriously because of the way that you looked. And this, I don't know if this is what's happening in this situation too, but something that came to mind for me is this woman mentioned, you know, I'm outperforming this guy that is showing up to work hungover, which is crazy in itself. I'm like, low-key, I feel like you could be fired for that, but it's fine. And he's making $8,000 more than her. It's one thing with merit-based increases. There are going to be some coworkers that just are better at their jobs than others. So I understand in that sense, if after a year or two, they would be making more, if that's a promotion or just they're getting merit-based increases. But for someone in this situation where obviously this is like a clear HR violation to me, how can this person navigate being treated so unfairly. This is blatant sexism in a lot of ways in this sense. How can they navigate that? Because in this case, it's like there needs to be something said. There needs to be some sort of advocation from her, I believe, in this point, because him showing up at a 1 every day and she's showing up at 10 and he's making more. This is not cool. How can she go about that in this situation?
Yeah, that's one of those things where like you have to ensure non-repudiation. You have to make sure that like document everything.
Yeah.
And when you do open your mouth, you need to make sure that everything that you're saying can be proved.
Yeah.
And because that's one thing about me is like I don't like to open my mouth if I'm going to be wrong about something.
Yeah.
Like if I don't know anything, I'm gonna shut up.
That's how I am too. Yeah.
If you know that man is making more than you and you can prove like quarter by quarter like you have been outperforming him.
Yep, these are the numbers.
And you know what the like the pay structure is.
Yeah.
Then I think you have a case. That's something you need to talk to HR about, because one thing about HR is that they protect the company first.
Yeah.
So if you are someone who's like, hey, like I noticed this, that reasonably they're going to try to make amends with you so that you don't take this elsewhere.
And like go on to online and be like, and they did this, and then they're getting sued. That makes sense.
And then, and if you do get to that point, before you even go to HR, you need to make sure you have everything in line, because if something happens and they retaliate against you and let you go, wrongful termination, then you need to be able to hop right over to an attorney and make a case.
Yes.
Like
bring the receipts,
or
actually.
Even consult with an attorney first. Like, gather your receipts, say like, this is what I know, this is what I, like, if I want to talk to HR about this and they happen to let me go, what can I do from here? So that's how you need to figure that out. Like, I know my company, like there's a specific pay structure. So like to avoid all of that, you can't really, what's it called? Like everyone at the same level makes the same amount.
Got it. Okay.
And you're eligible for like bonuses, and your bonus is going to be based off of like your performance review.
Okay. I love that. Yeah.
But every year everybody gets the same raise.
Got
like,
it.
Everyone's
moving up at the same time regardless, which I feel like is really fair, because at the end of the day, if I'm not performing to the standard, I should not be working at this company. Whoever's your manager needs to have conversations with leadership of this person should not be in our team anymore and moving up to the next level too. Can you name a time? You gave some really cool examples already today of any of your male counterparts getting special treatment based on what you believe may have been male. You said the example earlier of the new trainee, the person that was like kind of filling your position, being, you know, on these calls that you weren't a part of. Are there any examples that come to mind that were a little more blatant that you can think of too?
No.
And that's good then. I'm glad you haven't had to experience that too.
Like, I really tried to wrap my head around the whole situation. I think there were a lot of moving parts. Like, I don't want to necessarily blame it on sexism, because like I said, my manager was like very woke, like very highly intelligent, emotionally intelligent. Yeah. Which not a lot of men have those traits. But for him to be who he was, like that kind of like steered me away from just jumping right down the sexism path. Yeah. But I think too, like me moving away and not having such a presence in the office anymore kind of made way for that. So it's like, okay, you guys might be at the same position now, but you're not here anymore. So like, if we're seeing each other all the time, then it's easy for me to be like, hey, such and such, can you do this, that? Like, whereas you're somewhere else, you know, I have to text you and like wait for you to respond, and then have to like write out this whole thing for you so that you understand. So I think there was a lot of moving parts to that too. Yeah.
I'm glad that you've had, there's so many people, I see like a lot of it on social media that have these blatant situations of sexism. So I'm glad, especially having good management, that you haven't had those experiences, because I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. That's a really scary situation, honestly, to be in, where you have to go into a workplace environment and be experiencing that every day, especially if everyone that you work with is a man. That's so terrifying too. I was gonna ask you, do you feel like sexism might occur more in a male dominated field and you're like the only woman there, or do you feel like it might even occur more often if it's a female dominated field and there's only like a couple guys in the office? So you may notice that the guys in your office in marketing, for example, are getting a lot of special treatment because they're the two men in the office and everyone else is a woman. I feel like I've seen that even on my end. I mentioned that I worked in college admissions after I graduated, and I might edit out his name, but there was one of my counterparts that was just bad at his job, honestly. He was lazy. He was good with people, which I think is really important working in admissions because you're basically trying to like sell a school. So you need to be good with people and a little bit of a schmoozer in that way too. But he was bad at his job. He did not do his work and he got praised for it. And I always believed it was because he was like the only male in our office, really. So do you feel like sexism might even occur more often where it's like a few guys in a female dominated field as well? What do you feel about that?
So I think there's like two buckets for this answer. So I think for a woman who is looking to climb the ladder in a company that might be a little more forward, have a lot more women, I think it'd be easier for her to progress in that type of environment.
Yeah.
Because I think like female managers are more all encompassing.
Yeah.
When it comes to your performance, like they look at a lot more things. We just look at things more deeply.
We got it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We just look at things more deeply. So there's a lot of factors that go into that. And I think women will truly recognize like performance for what it is. We don't do this like, well, I don't want to say we don't do this, but like this boy club, like I think women can be cliquey, yes, but I think like women in positions of power are not like that.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think you're safer in that aspect.
Yeah.
Like I said, if I was in that position, I would have called a lawyer already. Or I would have had conversations with HR like, hey, like what are our policies? Make sure you review the policies. And like when you do open your mouth, make sure it can be proved. Because
bring a lot of those receipts.
He said, she said, can you don't want to end up without a job. And that goes on your record and
Yep. That's really good advice of actually like doing your work on your end, that you have your case full. So when it's time to have those conversations.
Like, this is discrimination without a doubt.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's what you need to be able to prove.
My last question for you kind of related to that is how often do you feel like workplace sexism is happening just based upon people's general ignorance? They don't know. And how harmful is that? Because people can use the excuse of, okay, we heard that you said this thing. Oh, I didn't know that was bad. Almost like stupidity in that sense, right? But it's really ignorance. It really is ignorance. I was listening to a podcast where they said, you'll be surprised at how many situations are happening because people just don't know that it's an issue that they're doing these things. Something as small as mansplaining. Obviously, that's really harmful, though, because people can continue to live this life in a lens of, oh, I just didn't know, but obviously their actions are still hurting someone else. In life, have you ever faced a situation where someone's ignorance made you feel a certain type of way, and how did you navigate either having a conversation with that person about it, or again, if that, in that situation you were like, it's not worth my time or energy to have this conversation because you're someone who's not going to change or is willing to change. How have you navigated that? Because I feel like that ignorance standpoint is something that a lot of women will face, unfortunately, in their workplace environments. A lot of men are just going to say, oh, I had no idea, and are not willing to change those thoughts and beliefs about them, those things that they're saying.
Yeah. That's the thing, though. Like, only control what you can control sometimes. I think if you know that the man you're dealing with is receptive to issues, if you've had different types of conversations before, and he's someone who like wants to, help, doesn't want to make you uncomfortable, wants to be a problem solver, you can say like, oh, this made me uncomfortable, or like, can we talk about this? Or like, because when you set boundaries, you're just teaching somebody how to deal with you, how to love you properly. If they're receptive to it, you're not going to give them a whole history lesson of, where it starts and
in 1922.
Yeah, like it's not gonna, you're not gonna be like, oh, you're like this because when you were young, you probably like, because that's where it starts. It starts when you're very young.
That is me. I would do that.
But no,
psychoanalyzing their asses.
That's what I do. I am very much. I'm like, oh, you're that way because
your mom left when you were 2, and you have this fear of like genuinely.
Yeah, that is really tough to deal with. It just takes a little more like work on your end to figure out how people are, so you learn how to approach things.
Yeah. It's hard to argue with someone who's not actually listening to your side of things. It's hard to talk to someone like that because you're speaking and even advocating for yourself in the situation, and you know that whole time when you're speaking, they are coming up with their defense already what they're going to be saying to you. They're not taking in a word of what you're saying. And I think women are very intuitive in the ways of knowing when someone is willing to change and their behavior and not mentioning those comments around the office or whatever that looks like versus someone who's going to continue to do that shit. It just may not be in front of you, you know? And I think it's important to know when you can have those conversations or not. Obviously, in some of these situations, it's like, okay, HR, build your case. It's not even a question. In other situations, you're right. Sometimes it's like, is it really worth saying something to this person? Or can I live my day to day, not interacting with them as much and continuing on? Only you can make a decision for that. Because some people are going to be like, cool, keep it moving. I'm someone that's like, I might have to say something. I can't go my day in and day out without saying something if I'm continually hearing this person making or saying things that I know stem from their own biases. That's affecting me, but that's just me. Everyone's different in that way.
Everyone at the end of the day, you just have to have the social awareness. Like my first company, like my manager, he's like my work dad. He was like a teddy bear. He was so sweet. Like I enjoyed working with him. Like personal issues, I would tell, like we were on that type of level. Like whereas like higher ups and stuff like that, we were all cool because it was a small shop. But I know like a couple of them, you know, they want to be the loudest guy in the room. The most, you know what I'm talking about, like that type of man.
We all know a man
We're
like that.
We're not getting personal. And if I had a team of all of the type of person that I'm thinking of in my head,
terrifying.
That's not the company I need to be at.
Immediately on LinkedIn every single day, please. During my office hours, on my work laptop, I'll be on LinkedIn. No, that is good advice. Last words of advice from you, just what you want to say to this person, general words of wisdom that you can offer for a situation obviously like this that is really inappropriate in a lot of ways. So what would you like to say to them that they can take forward and kind of bring into their next part of their workforce as they're in this office environment?
Number one, be strategic. Start talking, revisit these conversations with your manager, with HR, other colleagues. Start recording stuff. Start recording stuff. We don't care if it might be admissible or not. Gather your proof. Because when you open your mouth, just know it's not going to be a smooth, easy process. Oh, sorry, we underpaid you. All right, let's, fix it, sweep it under the rug. No. Because that's an act of war. So number one, gather your information and evidence collection. Do what you got to do, okay, to protect yourself. That's first and foremost. And just to like, you got to figure out like what fulfills you. Like, do you actually want to stay in that environment? You have to think about every angle because, okay, say you get the outcome you want. They give you the raise, but now you just caused all these issues. Everybody knows that you just complained. How is that going to affect your future? Are you going to get passed up for a promotion because now you burn some bridges, you rub somebody the wrong way? Like, it doesn't really sound like somewhere you're going to stay long term. So that you got to think about not only the outcome that you want, but what might be the consequences for that. Like, do you actually want to be there?
No.
Is the 8K pay raise worth how you're going to change the social dynamic in the office? So there's that too. I know the market's tough right now, but can you work somewhere else? Can you work with a company that is more progressive, that takes that kind of stuff very seriously? Like the company I work for takes that stuff very seriously. Like they don't play around with anything. So that's kind of where you have to be at. And then also like really, this is easier said than done. It's simple, but it's not easy. But really like learn to be at peace with things that you cannot change. Because at the end of the day, like if you're worried about someone's action, something they said, like they're not losing sleep over it. Ooh. You are. So how do you find a way to like cope with yourself? And like, I call it being delusional because I like to do this too. I'll be delusional with myself about something. Like, like if I'm like, oh, this thing is really bothering me, I will literally make up a story in my head to like ease my anxiety. Like, like your brain can be rewired. It's very easy to do stuff like that. So like, how are you coping with the things that you can't change?
You better start charging for your shit because I'm like, I'm about to pay you for that. That was so good. kidding me?
No, I read a lot of books.
That was amazing. No, I'm not kidding. I'm actually a little speechless from that. That's like beautiful advice. I think just for life in general, especially my therapist always says it, but hearing it in the context that you said, like, they are not losing sleep over these things.
You are.
But I am. I can't control it.
Like, oh my gosh. Do you know how many times I was telling you earlier, this year was so bad for me. I was not sleeping. Like, I'm up at 3 a.m. thinking about stuff that was like,
it was me 2 nights
ago.
And
I'm like, I know that person doesn't give a rat's
they
ass about me,
or
that what they said made me cry. They don't give a damn.
Yeah.
And I'm over here, I can't sleep because of them. Like, bye. I was like, you gotta do something. You gotta fix
they're
that.
in their REM sleep.
They're sleeping well.
They're dreaming, and it's not about you, actually. Yeah.
like.
No.
Oh no.
No.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. And just awesome advice of the day, dude. You're amazing. And you need to let the people know where to find you on all your social media. Look at this camera. Okay. I'm going to let you plug anything that you want. YouTube, TikTok, any courses, any things you're working on for the future that people can kind of keep in mind too. Where can the people find you at?
Okay, so just Fanta-Marie T are my usernames on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. That's where you can find me. My email is info@Fanta-Marie info@Fanta-Marie.com. If you have questions, feel free to spam me. I get a lot of notifications. It's not personal. I don't see everything. But if you harass me, I promise you I will respond and I won't be upset.
Urgent in the title. Yes. Subject line.
And for anybody that's looking to work in the corporate industry, has never worked in it before, I actually just put out a course 2 weeks ago. It's a corporate readiness boot camp. It's $9.99 on Fanta-Marie.shop if you want to go check it out. It just gives you tips on like focusing on your appearance and like being the kind of person that you want to be for the goals that you have set for your career, investing and, you know, how to network, how to talk to people to get your desired results and things like that. So if you want to give it a watch,
y'all better go watch. Yeah. No, amazing. You guys know where to find her. Please check her out. She's amazing. And so many things I learned today. So I know you guys want to obviously learn so much more too. Yeah. But as always, if you guys want advice on any cool topics like today, you know where to write in that advice form on my TikTok or Instagram @unlicensed advice. Also on my website, I feel like I never plug that. I need to be so much better about that. So www.unlicensedpodcast.com. And if you are an Atlanta creator, influencer, coach, therapist, one of my friends that's listening in and you're interested in being a guest and offering some really fucking cool advice, you know where to find me. Feel free to email me at unlicensed_advice@outlook.com. Or again, it's on my website too if you guys want to offer any really cool advice. But I love you guys and I'll see you next week.